Good morning and welcome to the November 7th business meeting. We are the Clackamas County Commissioners, and I want to announce that Commissioner Schrader is at a conference and will not be here today. I'm sure she'll watch the tape. So with that, Gary, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Chair. First, our staff support today, Stephen Madcore, County Council, Mary Rathke, Clerk to the Board. Roll call. Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here, please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first up is citizen communication. Vicki Halter and Lenny Kestrom. Please come on up. Tell us where you're from, your name and where you're from.
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so Vicki Halter, I live in Clackamas County, over in between Gladstone and Milwaukee. And our neighborhood has not had road paving. My husband purchased our home in 2001, and our neighborhood roads are just a mess. They're terrible. So I was originally emailed Mr. Schmidt, who then referred me to Mr. Johnson. They've been very helpful, emails and given me some insights of how funding goes, how Clackamas County wants to keep the roads maintained, who gets first dibs, you know, how it goes down the line. Of course, it's a neighborhood. It's not heavily trafficked, but it is in quite a shambles. So I do have some pictures that I took of the roads. This first one I want to really emphasize. So the edge here is where our neighbors, when we're driving, turn left or right onto Jennings. It's the main thoroughfare is Jennings. Up above us is Oakfield. Now, I see markings on Jennings. I'm like hoping that they're paving. But anyways, you could see the edge, how choppy and icky it is, and that's also near a school zone crossing. So, I mean, when you're driving out, it's not just like a little smooth hit the road. It's kind of bump, bump, hit the road. And then throughout the whole neighborhood, I have lots of pictures of, you can look where manholes are that are sticking way up out of the, you know, the asphalt is way down, lots of ruts, lots of washboard, lots of potholes. So anyways, I was just hoping, I think it's Mr. Johnson told me there's a 5-year plan, some new funding that's been established for roads. So I just want to ask that this area, it's about 3 miles of neighborhood road, if that, between Emerald Drive, Crystal Lane, and what was it, Garnett, Clayson Way. If they could just consider paving those roads, I would be very appreciative. So would my neighbors. We have a lot of elderly, a lot of dips down off their driveways that, you know, they trip, they could stumble. Certain things like that. Kids can't ride their big wheels, the neighbor kids, like that. So if you could just look at the pictures, take a look at it. The PCI ratings on those streets are very low. Emerald Drive is a PCI of 4.
Okay.
What was the PTI again?
PCI of 4,
Thank you.
yes. So if this could be considered, like I said, I'd be much appreciative. And I have had a lot of good help. Thank you from Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Johnson.
I just wonder, on our citizen committee where we review, I mean, they talk about spending their dollars. If it might not be appropriate to have citizens write in and request, it might be worth at least get you on the list to make sure it's something we're going to consider in the future. So I'm going to suggest that might be something we want to talk about. All right?
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to respond by saying that transportation dollars are from gas tax.
Correct.
Primarily in vehicle registration fees and so on. So they're restricted, and part of that money is spent on capital projects or new projects. Some of that is spent on road maintenance, which is where your category is. And I'll look into where it is on the priority list as far as, because there's classifications of roads where the priorities are higher.
Right.
And
Well, I get that,
neighborhood
yeah.
streets like my own, I have a very similar situation on our street where it's slowly degrading and falling
Mm-hmm.
apart. But I did want to say that the markings you're seeing, if there's any bright light on Jennings Avenue, there was some regional money that was, we want a grant to put a sidewalk system on Jennings Avenue.
Oh, that would be
So that will be an
tremendous.
improvement on Jennings for safety and for Candy
Right.
Lane in the school. So you may have seen a new
Yes.
little piece coming from Candy Lane. That's part of a
Yes.
project.
Yes.
So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Good. All
All
right.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Lenny?
Gotta have the glasses on.
I know the feeling.
My name is Lenny Kesterson. I live in Clackamas County. I'm a Navy veteran and volunteer for the American Cancer Society's Action Network. Now, I can't read this thing at all. And I'm also a member of the Clackamas County Tobacco Retail License Task Force. I appreciate your opportunity to talk with you this morning. One reason I am especially passionate about tobacco control is being big tobacco is marketing these deadly products directly to the service members. When I was in the service, when we would get rations, we would also get a package of cigarettes. And,
I remember it well.
or we could buy some in the military, tax-free. It was a very inexpensive habit. So a lot of military men became addicted, myself included. And during the Vietnam War, we had a lot more to worry about than tobacco. It was something that you got to break if you smoked. As a former smoker, I knew exactly how powerful the addiction to nicotine products can be. That is why I am thankful for the opportunity to participate in the county's task force to study countywide tobacco retail license ordinance. In addition to being a former military person, I am also a grandfather. I have two granddaughters, Aubrey, 6, and Madison, 4, and I do not want them to smoke. I will do everything in my power to talk them out of doing cigarettes or vaping or anything that remotely like that, because it has really affected my life, not in a good way. I think we should encourage all tobacco retailers to follow the rules. Don't sell this to children. Tobacco retail license is a common sense policy, making it more difficult for young people to start a deadly addiction. The recent release of OHA's Healthy Teen Survey indicated that teens across the state are using e-cigarettes, 300% more than in 2019 than 2017. This is just further evidence addiction to the tobacco products continues to grow, and Everyday Commission does not act in another day. A teen in Clackamas County starts a predominantly life-threatening addiction to a deadly product. As a constituent, former smoker, and most importantly, a grandfather, I am thankful the Commission has requested to move forward in the policy study process. I appreciate your prioritizing this issue. Thank you for this committee for addressing this concern.
Well, thank you, and we probably all agree with you, and I appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you.
And thanks for your service.
Yes, thank you. All right, next up, Michael and Lynn.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was calling somebody else up. Thank you for coming today.
Of course. Thank you for allowing the public to come and speak. Michael Hall, I'm from Milwaukee, and I'm a member of the Clackamas Climate Action Coalition. We have a process for endorsing a speaker, two-thirds of our people approving of comments in advance, and I haven't had time to go through that process today. So what I'm about to read is, I know, shared sentiment by many in our group, but I am here as an individual citizen. Led by Dr. William Ripple and Christopher Wolf, both from Oregon State University, yesterday, 11,000 scientists from 150 countries or more issued a dire warning related to the climate issue. I quote, "The climate crisis has arrived and is accelerating faster than most scientists expected. It is more severe than anticipated, threatening natural ecosystems and the fate of humanity. The scientists warn of untold suffering unless the global society undergoes a major transformation in order to address the crisis." So, based on that, how seriously are we to take the urgency, the magnitude of these statements? The Commission obviously beginning a climate action program study, and part of the discussion there has been, will climate impacts be part of all of the decisions being made going forward? But one question is, will the County Commission start before the CAP is finished? Is there reason to start today? Is the urgency significant enough? Clearly, based on the threats from the scientists, every day of delay compounds the issue. My conclusion is we must start now. So I have a couple of specific things going on in the county that I want to just talk briefly about. The first one, we're aware of a 50-acre timber cut that's going to be taking place in Molalla. We have tried to get the details on what this is all about and found that the details are hard to find. But a number of our people are going to be attending meetings soon. We want to know, for example, is this a clear cut? Is it a thinning? Who's doing it? Why is it being done? We have a lot of questions to be answered, and we may well be back to talk more about that as a group. Our natural forests are an amazing source of sequestering carbon, and we need to keep that in mind. The second point I want to make is this. The Sunrise Corridor. As the crisis worsens, there's going to be a lot of new faces coming to the Willamette Valley. Thousands of additional climate refugees will be needing well-designed, well-placed, affordable housing areas, not what I would call suburban McMansions to hide our rich from the homelessness. Going forward, we need win-win-win. A win for business equals a win for business advocates and equals a win for the fate of humanity. Anything less than that will become a loss for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lynn Spitaleri Handlin, and I have lived in Happy Valley for close on 30 years. More than 11,000 scientists around the world recently issued the warning that Earth faces a climate emergency and also mass extinction, mass die-out, like the planet has never seen. We all know this is our nightmare. In my home here in Clackamas County, I see trees, especially cedars, dying more than they should. Fire seasons are getting worse overall, and there are fewer frogs. The streams are warming. The salmon have been returning to Johnson Creek in the last several years due to thousands of volunteer hours, including mine, doing habitat restoration. That salmon population is now at risk due to the warming streams due to climate change. I notice the changes when I hike along the Clackamas River, one of my favorite places. All these taken one at a time may seem small and local, but taken together are a very disturbing sign of things to come if we do not change now. The city of Happy Valley has, for decades, expanded, developed endless oversized single-family subdivisions in communities. I use that term loosely. Very hard to have communities when everybody has to drive everywhere. that are designed for cars, not people. With the entire bowl of Happy Valley excluding any commercial area, it forced people to drive everywhere. When my kids were little, there was a TriMet bus that ran through the bowl of Happy Valley. Not often, but it was there. I assumed it would get better service as the area inevitably grew in population. Instead, it is now gone. There is little or no bus service in most of this area. What we need is a real plan for non-automobile infrastructure, bus lanes, bus lines, a train, bike paths, more pedestrian-friendly crosswalks, so you don't have to take life and limb to cross Sunnyside. This kind of improved transportation infrastructure is not only necessary to do our part to limit carbon emissions and give all our children a chance at a future, it's better for our community, better for our health. We do not need a freeway with all the air pollution that inevitably comes from that, and better for business. When you have people walking around and biking and can access their businesses easier, everybody does better. The Sunnyside design, not good. What we really do not need and cannot afford in any way, economically or environmentally, is a Sunrise Corridor freeway. This is exactly the wrong direction. We all know the problem. The climate crisis has been predicted for decades, and now it is here. But now is the time to act to prevent the worsening, so my children, your children, all our children, and those we share this planet with will have a livable home when they are my age or your age. It is not too late. We must all act now at all levels, personal, local, state, national, globally. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you. First, Ken?
Yes, tonight at 7 p.m. At the Oregon Department of Forestry in Molalla, there will be a meeting regarding the timber harvest that you referenced. On Saturday at 9 a.m., there'll be a timber harvest site tour. So if you wish to participate, you can do so, and it'll give you an opportunity to talk to our forestry people and get some of your questions answered. If you have some time after this meeting, I'd like to meet with you in the office to discuss some issues somewhat related to what you were talking about.
We will have people at both of those meetings over in Molalla, and I appreciate your offer to meet later. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that a county sale or a forest?
I believe it is, but I'm not absolutely certain on that. I'd have to check with Rick.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to respond by saying that the concept of a freeway on the Sunrise Corridor was scrapped a long time ago. There's no interest in a freeway.
Or expansion of the road through there that Happy Valley has been screaming for.
Pardon?
The expansion of when I went to the Metro meeting where they're talking about, all the different designs, and part of it, the demand in this area was Sunrise Corridor increase in roads, widening, et cetera, whether you call it a freeway or just like making it all much
I
bigger.
apologize for any misinformation. I think our staff will be happy to actually give you the information that we've provided.
I would love to see, because, I looked at the boards and the whatever at Metro, and I was like, really? Why are we doing this?
So he wants to talk, and you let him finish his comments, and
All
then
right.
maybe you can respond.
Yeah, I didn't want to get in an argument. I'm sorry. I have no interest in an argument. I just wanted to try to maybe provide you some accurate information. Highway 212 is not a people-friendly, transit-friendly, elements, and we're trying to add those elements to that. There are thousands of residences that are basically trapped, other than a car, to get across the highway or to the parks or to schools and everywhere else. So I'd maybe ask you happy to spend time with you and help educate or have our staff provide information to you about what the project is all about. But our issue and my passion about this issue is providing a means of getting this to be a it currently is a non-friendly, non-people-friendly, non-transit-friendly, non-bike-friendly, non-pedestrian-friendly interstate or highway. And that's what it is today, and we want to change that.
Yeah.
It's also opportunity to build the housing that we can for low-income families and so forth as well. So it opens up all those opportunities. And we have a lot of very low-income people there right now who are their only means of transportation. Safe transportation is with a car, and that's not acceptable.
So I want to add a little to that. I'm on the T2020 we have significantly altered a plan, which I don't know if it'd be appropriate to offer. We did offer members of that group to go on a tour. So you'll be seeing something different come out on that. But the reason there's no transit in Happy Valley is because there's no opportunity to do that, and that's because Sunnyside is not an appropriate road to provide a lot of transit on. The Sunrise that we're looking at now improves bike pedestrian access, safety. And, you know, I've been in the car business for, we were 93 years in the automotive repair business. I'm not in that anymore, but I've stuck a lot of pipes up to read the emissions on cars that idle. I guarantee you it's much higher than a car driving. Now, in the future, when we have electric cars, you know, the Sunrise will provide additional opportunities for bike, ped, and, you know, cars that don't produce emissions. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And it is not the project it was, even you've seen, or the committee has seen. We have amendments to that project. The other thing is that when Happy Valley wanted to expand their urban renewal district, we demanded that a portion, 7% of their urban renewal district, went to affordable homes. So that's around the 172nd area, so affordable housing. So they're looking at buying up land and working with us and Metro to build affordable housing out there. But right now, Clackamas County is different. You know, you can say in Portland we don't need any more roads, and I totally agree. I totally agree. But in Clackamas County, we still have thousands of households, like Paul said, off of 212, that only choice is driving a car. We got to improve the opportunity for people to bike, ped. We also need to have grocery stores where they can be closer by. You know, we have places where they're virtually deserts. There's no grocery stores anywhere. The other thing I want to say is that just this week, we were talking about our climate goals, and I agree, they're too far out. So we talked about shortening that time frame.
Excellent.
Cool.
I personally have 60 panels of solar on my barn. I don't use electricity anymore. I was listening today on the radio, a guy, a coal mine, you know, one of the big coal people said that it'll be a disaster if we don't use coal anymore because this climate is a fake. Climate change is a fake. I don't know. I guess he doesn't watch TV. But California certainly is impacted by climate. Palm Springs was 120 degrees for close to 130 on a few days for weeks, month. It is changing, and we are very much aware and very much dedicated to to stopping this. And our future purchases of cars, we're working on that. Hopefully it'll be electric, and my future car will be an electric one. I have a Prius now, but anyway, I could go on forever. So, go ahead.
So I really appreciate your perspective, but I have a question because I battle these policy points in my mind, so I would love your thoughts on this. So Happy Valley, it does have an urban renewal district, which they have formed, and they will be adding 10 to 14,000 households and jobs to Happy Valley. That is happening. And so when I think about quality of life, and also what Chair Bernard was saying about cars idling, I'm concerned about not expanding the ability for travel will hurt our quality of life. That, coupled with the improvements that Chair Bernard was saying to allow for bike, pedestrian, and future transit in the development, it seems like we have to do something. Like, we can't just leave it. I actually asked the question when I was getting briefed on it. I says, well, if we don't build a Sunrise, then what happens? Will Happy Valley not develop? Because then I think, well, maybe that's not so bad, right? But no, it will, it's going to develop. So with or without the sunrise, it's going to happen. So just your thoughts on that piece.
So, couple things. First of all, I would love to see the updated whatever that is.
We'll have it finalized probably next week.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I mean, that would make me, I understand the problem involved, and I also understand that Happy Valley has brought this on themselves with decades of the worst city planning ever. The city was designed for cars. I mean, that was their intent. It was like, we are a bedroom community. We don't want we could have had a little commercial district in the middle of the bowl of Happy Valley easily. The land was there. The zoning would have been so easy. Didn't happen. So that whole jobs and grocery stores and stuff like that, you have to drive to them. Yeah, that's because Happy Valley has done that to itself. So, okay, that ship has sailed. We got to deal with the nightmare we have of Happy Valley. So I would love to see, what things you propose. And sure, they're putting in like the new homeless, or not homeless, but the low-income housing areas. That's great. They definitely did not want any of that anywhere near the bowl of Happy Valley, because as my neighbors pointed out, it brings in the riffraff. They literally said that. They said also they didn't want any TriMet buses. There used to be a bus through Happy Valley. I mean, it really did. So it's like the fact that people are like, oh, you can't have buses in Happy Valley. It doesn't work with the roads. I'm like, well, I know it's not easy, but they used to. So, but again, the people around me said we don't want buses because it brings in the riffraff. So there's a lot of bad history with the design of Happy Valley, and that's part of my frustration for sure, because if we had dealt with this years ago, we wouldn't be having this same conversation. We'd be having a very different one. So I get the problem. I understand that something needs to be done, but also if it's like we need roads and stuff for future mass transit. No, it's like if we're putting in, that's what I want to see is, are there like dedicated bus lanes, that kind of thing that'll make it doable? Or is it just like, oh, here's a nice new road that eventually buses can go on later, which is more of what I have seen in the past with the development of the area.
Well, thank you for that.
So,
I mean,
you
I
asked
appreciate
the
it.
question, so.
It's a tough one, and your perspective is a valuable one.
I think that, actually, one of the comments was a transitional project. If they gave us the money to do a transitional project, we could do all those things you're talking about. But money's limited, and we can't get the kind of money where we could do a dedicated bus lane. The other thing, statistic that never comes up much, we mention all the time, 65 to 70% of Clackamas County residents have to leave the county to go to work. That means they're all driving on roads. So there's one opportunity Happy Valley does have is 14,500 jobs. And if we could keep those people from having to drive to Washington County, Multnomah County, and they could go to work there, or we provide high-speed internet to every household, we could change that.
That
And
sounds
we're looking at doing that. We'd love to have people stay home and work. But we don't have that opportunity right now. Paul?
Yeah, well, being part of transportation committees for the last 20 years, we in Clackamas County have been clamoring, begging TriMet for transit, including the city of Happy Valley, including the city of Westland, including the city of Lake Oswego. As a matter of fact, at our retreat, our C4 retreat, that's what the cities are all been complaining about. We don't get the transit we want. If you open up a TriMet map and you look at all the TriMet lines, where are most of the TriMet lines? They're to the north of us. Not because we don't want it, because we're not getting it. And that's been the constant cry for that. So a local road that maybe Michael knows is Oatfield Road, trying to get better service on Oatfield Road or River Road. TriMet says, well, we really can't serve that because you really don't have improved roads. You don't have sidewalks. You don't have bike lane. You don't have the pullouts. So we're not going to put service out there. Happy Valley or Damascus or anywhere out there, we can't provide the service because you don't have improved roads. You don't have the improved sidewalk or a shelter to put them in. So, it's a circular argument. If you don't allow us to build the basic facilities, these people are trapped. And to Commissioner Fisher's point, dead on. We want to make this and shape this as best as possible so we can accommodate all those facilities and the infrastructure to do that with. And I think we're actually more in alignment than we realize, but I think we're probably confused. I think the information that came from us even spells that out and has been adequate. I don't think, even the current information we have, our problem is at the T2020 table in that discussion, we have not, Commissioner Bernard has not had the opportunity to present our project. It's been presented for us, and it's been misrepresented. And I think that's the challenge. We have not had an ample opportunity for our staff to actually present the elements of this project that we are speaking about today: bike, ped, transit, and the basic facilities to do that. And if they want to give us enough money to put a dedicated bus lane, hey, we're in. We're in. But you know what? They're not giving us enough money to even buy the land to do it with. And that's our challenge.
Additionally, got to remember what I was going to say. I'll think of it after you're done.
You didn't mean transitional, you meant transformational.
Yeah, transformational. And people have been saying that all around the table, you know. If you really want to have an impact on the environment, you got to give us some money to do a transformational project. And the Sunrise could be. And if we had enough money, it would be. But it's also true with every project that they're looking at. You know, McLaughlin Boulevard, we're looking at additional floors to the parking structure because people have to drive past it to go to the next one. So it makes sense. Get them here. And then the bike ped bridge in Gladstone, Oregon City, that we're interested in, improvements for pullouts and stuff that could reduce, you know, congestion and safety. All those things are things that we're all very interested in doing. But 3.1 billion when a lot comes off the top for the South Corridor, which I'm a total support of, you know, makes our cut pretty small. And so we're working to do something transformational. I mean, write that down. Anything else?
This has been a very interesting conversation. I appreciate all the new detail. I feel like I'm getting a bit of an education from you folks. That's good. I trust that you'll do everything you can to get the word out about the way this is emerging, because I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, and apparently I've been receiving some of that and presenting that back to you today. So thank you.
The first committee I sat on 20 years ago in our community that you know I both live in, the citizens who want to use transit said, this is what we need. We need sidewalks to safely walk from our homes to the boulevard. We need perhaps not a shelter, but a shuttle or a jitney, local jitney to help us because some of the grades issues are challenges. We need the shelters. We need safe crossings. We need all the means to get to transit or transit to get towards where they need to go. This has been the cry, the consistent cry. What we don't get, we don't get what we need. We don't get what we ask for. We get what's given to us and what's prescribed. And it's not what our citizens need and want.
It's true.
And they want to use it.
Well, thank you for coming today. Oh, wait.
Last little thing, sorry.
sorry.
That's okay. So I know you're having a meeting on November 20th, and we will all be at the Association for Oregon Counties conference, which is once a year. But if there's any other time that your group is meeting, oh man, I would love to come. I'm sure my other commissioners would love to come and just have this kind of a roundtable, because truly it's through the exchange of ideas and connection that we're able to move the dial on these issues. So please I'm so happy that you're here, and keep us engaged.
Thank you. A little news update on that. Because of the intense interest in the debates, we've actually decided to reschedule our meeting.
Oh, okay.
We're looking at a couple of dates early in December, and we hope to get that nailed down and get some new information out very soon. So we're hoping that it might work out with your schedules to fold into that too.
Excellent. I would really like to attend.
Ken, I'd love to reschedule with you. I'm not going to be able to stay in to meet with you after today. Is that all right?
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Rachel and Les. Wait, did I skip you? Did I skip you? Okay, all right. People grab my cards and mix them up, and thankfully Mary puts numbers on them, so.
I got it.
So Rachel, you're first.
All right. Good morning. My name is Rachel Dawson. I'm a resident of Oregon City as well as a policy analyst at Cascade Policy Institute. So that report being passed around, that was authored by John Charles from Cascade Policy Institute. And I'm here today to talk about bridge capacity in Clackamas County. It's been a serious, I'm sorry, bridge capacity. Can you hear me on this microphone?
Capacity?
Bridge capacity?
Yes, bridges in Clackamas County. In 1999, Metro considered 17 bridge options across the Willamette River. They decided instead to put a moratorium on building new bridges. And in that report found that by 2015, if people continued to drive at the rate they were, that their current bridges would be grossly congested. Unsurprisingly, that prediction came true. As mentioned earlier in this meeting today, a vast majority of Clackamas County residents do drive to Multnomah County and Washington County for their jobs. And with the growing county, this lack of access across the river is causing congestion. It's causing people to idle in their cars trying to get to their jobs. The Selwood Bridge was replaced. But unfortunately, in doing so, they removed lanes, they decreased transit service across that bridge, which was not a net benefit for the region. The saving grace of that bridge is that it's a beautiful bridge, if you've seen it, and it's also earthquake resilient. And it's rather mind-boggling to me that, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, Clackamas County isn't considering any new bridges across the Willamette River, despite knowing that there's a potential for a massive earthquake in the region. So I think that having more earthquake resilient ways of getting across that river is extremely important. I went to an emergency preparedness meeting a couple of years ago, and one of my big takeaways was, if you live in the region, don't live on the west side of the river for emergency preparedness. So I've since actually moved to Oregon City. I used to live in West Linn because that's a serious concern for me. Thus, I ask you to consider in the future a new multimodal bridge across the Willamette River in Clackamas County, one that can have great amenities for pedestrians and bikes, like the Selwood Bridge. If everyone in the region is going to pay for a new bridge, I ask that it be one that can be used by all modes of transportation for people during the work week, during emergencies. I've provided that copy of the Selwood Bridge paper. I ask that you read it and not make the same mistakes that Multnomah County has made in the past in making congestion worse with their project. I think forcing residents in Clackamas County to idle in their cars is not great, as mentioned earlier, for the environment, but it's also not great for the quality of life for people trying to travel in this region. Thank you.
You came at a good day.
I know.
Paul?
Yeah, do you have a card you can leave with us? A business card or what, contact?
Yes, I do.
Contact
Yes, I can do that for
I'd
you.
love to hook up with you. I'm not sure if you are aware, but I've been engaged with a study of a crossing between Oak Grove and Lake Oswego. Are you aware of that study?
I have been to a couple meetings for that, yeah.
Okay,
And I'm interested in going forward what's going to happen to that because I believe I read an email yesterday that Lake Oswego was pulling out from that bridge study. So I'd be interested in learning more about
Yeah, correct.
what
So
will
I'd love
happen.
to chat with you about that. But yeah, that's want to make sure you knew about it. And unfortunately, Tuesday night, that kind of looks like it may have put the kibosh on that concept. But there's other ideas out there about how to get across the river. And you're right, the west side is the side of the river that's probably most at jeopardy, at risk of being stranded, so to speak. So, but I'd love to get your contact information and I'll read your material. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we as a board decided that the process on the bridge that was being considered Lake Oswego needed more community input. And however, that's no longer going to take place since you're right, they did pull out. Because we hadn't, the choice hadn't even been made which route. But years ago, there was a study about 224 extending into Dunthorpe, which I always joked, there's a lot of lawyers living there. So whether that road would ever happen, who knows? But the other issue is who maintains the bridge. You build the bridge, who maintains the bridge, and no one wanted it. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that we can really afford. We have how many bridges, Ken?
13.
13 bridges in Clackamas counties, and that
Clackamas County in the region. In the region across the Willamette.
No, I meant we own as a county, how many bridges?
Oh, on our county roads?
Yeah.
180.
180 bridges. That's a lot to maintain. Adding more bridges is not something we necessarily want to do. Anyway, thank you for coming, and it was a good day to come. Les?
A very good day to come. Les Poole. I talk about transportation until you're blue in the face, and I'd like anyone to go back over the last 6 or 8 years and find anything I've said that was way off based. I don't say that out of arrogance. I say that because I've been here over 200 times, and when I show up and talk about transportation, I don't look at it from a personal or neighborhood perspective. I look at it as a much bigger picture. And I see a lot of well-intended folks come in here and make suggestions that are well-intended, as I said, but quite naive. If you look at the signs on the roads, you can learn a lot. And one of the things I learned is that when you see the state symbol, such as you see on Highway 212 or 224, that's a state highway. That means that the county doesn't own it. That means that it's a connector, a regional connector. That means that it's critical for commerce. And regardless of the population growth or the failures for planning in Happy Valley, and regardless of any vision anyone has about what's going to happen there, it is completely unrealistic to not support extending the Sunrise Corridor beyond where it is. We desperately need to get the next phase up to 172nd. It will certainly relieve that huge bottleneck where 224 and 212 split, and it will help keep commerce going. I have a Facebook page, and I invite everyone to go to it. It's the Vehicle Transportation Alliance. And if you look on the cover, instead of a picture of me in my car, you see semi-trucks pulling out of Fred Meyer's. That is a distribution corridor. That is our connection to the outside world. That is our connection to the outside world economically. It's also our connection to Mount Hood and all of the wonderful places that we all love to go. Whether we're walking there, riding a bike, taking a car, a bus, we absolutely need that project to move forward. And I'm troubled by some of the naive arrogance I see these days. On another subject, and I will be brief, you know, we have a lot of back and forth communication here, and the subject that I have for you is a compliment. I sat here waiting to speak, and when we were done, one of the individuals thanked you or mentioned the conversation. That's right, we have conversations here, and sometimes they're scary. Sometimes they're not pleasant, but I think that they're the most critical thing that's happening in terms of citizen awareness, because these conversations are so much better than what we had years ago, where when a person got to 3 minutes and 3 seconds, the time was up, you heard the chair say next, their testimony was flushed, the next person spoke, and that created a really bad situation. So, you know, again, I can't help but say that it's my fault that we have communication here on that level. I fought for that, and I'll take full responsibility. Because in the end, the communication that we're having here, whether I agree or no matter what opinions we have, is something special, and we're facing some really big problems. And we got a lot of issues. And if it doesn't play out here, we'll have a repeat of the past, which is alienation, distance, no communication, and then eventually an angry mob, or all of a sudden a huge crowd shows up because they don't know what's going on, or worse yet, they have the feeling that something has taken place or changes and decisions have been made and they didn't know what was going on. So as always, I appreciate our forum, and I hope this lady comes again. Transportation is the biggest issue we face right now. If we don't fix it, we're not going to fix homelessness or anything else. Thank you as always.
Yes, Sonia?
Hey, Les, what is the name of the Facebook post? You said vehicle?
It's a page, it's the Vehicle Transportation Alliance.
Alliance. Okay,
Alliance.
thank you. I just
Real
missed that
simple
last one. I want to look
concept,
at it.
working to be advocates for roads and
Yep.
directing more spending in that direction. And as you can imagine, totally opposed to the tolling scheme. You'll see a lot of opposition to tolling on that page, so I certainly
Yeah.
am not going to be hesitant to let you know that there's a couple things going on. But I appreciate everyone that's been watching, everyone that's been dealing with what's going on, because we're at a crossroads. And like I said last week when I spoke, folks are out of money. They're feeling tapped out. So you're under the gun. I wish you luck.
Thanks. And, you know, I'd say all of us have learned a better way to run these meetings. I certainly have. And we have open conversations, and I appreciate you coming and complimenting us on it. And I know that we plan to continue that. And you were 1 minute and 15 seconds over. Just kidding.
Not that we were counting, right?
I was up there. All right, so we don't have any other cards, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. I ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay, today's consent agenda. Oops. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a personal services contract with Northwest Housing Alternatives for home-based program operations and financial assistance. Approval of Amendment Number 2 to the Agency Services Agreement with Northwest Housing Alternatives for system diversion and rapid rehousing services. Approval of a warming center site pilot project with Do Good Multnomah for warming shelter staffing. Approval to update the Health Resources and Services Administration required co-applicant agreement between Clackamas County and the Health Centers Division Community Health Council. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes, and approval of fiscal year 2019-2020 local subrecipient grant agreement with the District Attorney's Office and the Children's Center of Clackamas County. Under Juvenile, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Gladstone for community diversion program services. Under Disaster Management, approval of fiscal year 19 State Homeland Security Grant Program Agreement between Clackamas County and the State of Oregon for shelter trailers. Under Business and Community Services, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and Oregon Department of Environmental Quality for Clackamas County illegal dump sites. Under Technology Services, approval of a service level agreement, Amendment Number 2, between Clackamas Broadband Exchange and the City of Wilsonville. And under Water Environment Services, approval of a declaration of covenant of maintenance, release, and indemnity agreement between Water Environment Services and the City of Oregon City. That concludes today's consent agenda.
Does any commissioner want to remove or pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Been moved in second that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item is County Administrator update.
Yes, Commissioners, some good news I'd like to share with you going on here at Clackamas County. Our Sustainability and Solid Waste Division within the Department of Transportation and Development reports that for this calendar year, 2019, they loaned out more recycling containers than ever before. In total, 1,075 recycling containers were placed across 104 events in Clackamas County, including the County Fair, Pickathon Music Festival, and several farmers markets. By borrowing our containers, event coordinators reduce waste and redeem beverage deposits to fund activities or to be donated. So thanks to our Sustainability and Solid Waste Division for helping foster a culture of waste reduction at home, work, and on the go. That's my update for you, Commissioners.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Communications, Sonia, you're up first.
All right. So I have a couple pictures. As many of you know, the Metro area approved the Nature for All bond, which was a continuation of funding that goes towards open space acquisition and our parks. And so I just wanted to, I've done a lot of reflecting on the importance of these. Before I was a commissioner, I would literally go for mega hours into the woods to hike. And I did that before I was a commissioner because as a lawyer with a full-time caseload of working with families in crisis and difficult situations, the stress on my shoulders was so great that the only way I could really release it was to get out there in the woods. And I became quite the hiker, going up very steep areas and really focusing on that. And then as a commissioner, there have been so many opportunities to take that perspective, the importance of having access to nature through our public policy. So the one of the pictures there that we show, the one with my husband with Christine, the first picture was when it was years ago, as we were just hiking up a trail. My husband took that one. The second one is at Scouters Mountain. That space is so amazing for accessibility and for people with disabilities to go and to be active on those trails. She can walk circles, and if you ever see my daughter, she can never walk very fast and she struggles walking, but being up there is just such a gift and so beautiful and reminds us of how important it is that our nature spaces are there for people who have special needs. So on Tuesday, we had the opportunity to celebrate the Nature for All passage, which is a continuation of current levy for people that live in the metro region. And I believe we have another slide which shows that over 60%, it's right here, of our voters approved that.
I didn't have that
Oh,
one. I'm
you
sorry.
did it? Okay, maybe it didn't send them, that's okay. And you might say, well, what would Clackamas County get for those dollars? And the one of the most amazing gifts that we will get from Clackamas County is access, and I'm saying access, to the Willamette Falls. So it's been since 1850, when there was public access to the falls. We will have that with this bond. It dedicates $20 million. It will open that up. Our residents will be able to go. I wanted to show a picture of the falls, but somehow that didn't get sent to Mary. But that's okay, because I think we all know how beautiful those Willamette Falls are. The bond will also allow us to have other acquisition of open spaces, which will really benefit us in the region. And outside of even the direct metro region, which people may not know, it will allow acquisition of some of our beautiful land to preserve that for future generations. So today we heard a lot about climate change, we heard a lot about building roads, we heard a lot about quality of life. We heard a lot about how do you build community. Well, having access to nature is so incredibly important. I, for one, can say it has saved my mental health in dealing through stressful times. And it's something that we must preserve and have as a very important public policy perspective, which in this region, not only do the leaders have that perspective, but our constituents and our voters. So thank you for that, and more to come. And Mr. Administrator, I sent an email to Rick saying, how do we get educated on how we will utilize the more detail, more meat about what this really means to us in Clackamas County. So more news to come for our residents, but congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just share, I was unable to be here last week. I was meeting with soon-to-be appointed or approved ODOT director, talking about transportation in our region. But last Tuesday evening, I hosted a town hall, my second one in that area. My two other ones, one in West Lynn and one in Oregon City this year, and my last one will be next week, next Tuesday, November 12th. Is a transportation, it's actually hosted by Representative Prusak and Representative Meek. And we'll be talking about transportation. So it'll be at the West Lynn Adult Center at November 12th between 5:30 and 7:30. So for those interested about transportation issues, that'll be a great opportunity. But going back to the town hall that I held both Tuesday night and also this summer in the Oak Grove area, people were just invited to really talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. And we wrote down all those issues. Our staff did a great job. Again, great thanks to my staff, Tracy Moreland, for assisting in both those. Well-run program. But as we listed all those up and we talked about them even last Tuesday evening, what became apparent was there were a lot of concerns about what's going on. And I think there's a sentiment out there that we're not really headed in the right direction. And that's just not Oak Grove. I mean, that's a perspective. Recent polling found that a substantial majority of people polled felt the same thing, that we're just not headed in the right direction. Homelessness ranks extremely high. Transportation challenges range high. Affordability ranks really, really high. These are all real concerns for a lot of people. And towards the end of this town hall Tuesday evening, a young lady walked up, and she had already spoke earlier, but she says, I've been listening. This is my first town hall. What's good that's going on? And I said, that's a great question. Again, the tenor of the meeting or the tenor of the topics was all generated by the people in the room. And so we talked about libraries for a little bit, that, we have a great new library. You live in the area. We're working on constructing that, possibly a park as well. A number of things that are really heavily reliant on funding. We got the land currently. Maybe we have a building that can be retrofitted, but they're currently not in state. But there's no money. There's no adequate means to build either the park, or there's no adequate means to build the library. But I didn't share that with her. I really just told her, the group, that it's an exciting time. Let's be positive. We have an opportunity in front of us. But underlying there and rolling back those experiences and those conversations about a number of things that were raised that evening, it boils down to funding. And funding is ever so critical at this time. And when I spoke earlier this year, when we were going through our budget cycle, and I talked about the fact that we really didn't have a sustainable budget and that we're in a financial crisis, it just really drives home that issue. And what comfort perhaps we can find, or I can find, or my colleagues can find, as far as when we will get to the point where we have a sustainable budget. And when we'll have the means of repairing that. And I was a little bit taken back Tuesday when we kind of reviewed our goals, that the revised, or the language for the goal is that we'll have a sustainable budget by the year 2022. And I struggle with that. We can have a balanced budget, and maybe we'll need to scrape up or find about $9 million worth of cuts. But as I recall, I think the number was like about $15 million of cuts in order to have a sustainable budget. So if it is 15, just in rough numbers, and it is 9 million, and that delta is 6, so we're $6 million away per year, and it's 2019 today, and 2022 is 3 years away. That's $12 to $18 million. I mean, it's $12 million for 2 years. It's $18 million for others. That's perhaps monies or dollars that could be leveraged or could be saved if we actually found a sustainable budget. I know at home that if we're spending 10% more than we have, it's not going to be very much time before the checkbook doesn't balance, or you don't start paying your bills. And and some people are actually facing that reality, and they're finding themselves homeless, not because they're not hardworking people, but just because of affordability. So we need to tighten our belts. And frankly, I have deep concerns that going 2 to 3 more years of not having a sustainable budget is really, frankly, not acceptable, and not having a plan to get there at a faster rate, like I presume we would. Because when we were here in June, the goal was to have a sustainable budget by this coming year. And I don't see that that is what is being expressed or what was discussed Tuesday at our work session. I have serious concerns about that. And I think that every day that I see another financial hit to this county, or to parks, or to libraries, are not the means to accomplish a lot of what people are expecting or asking for, It's just one more hour of sleep I lose every night, on top of the hours of sleep I'm already losing every night. So I go away with this message to my colleagues that I really hope that, you know what, 2022 for a sustainable budget is not acceptable. And I want to go back to where we were in June when we said that we would have a sustainable budget by this June. That's what I have for today.
Okay, Ken. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, you know, in response to a little bit of Commissioner Savis's comments, there's a tendency for us as people to focus on what's not working and not necessarily what is working. So it's a trap you don't want to go down. There's a lot of things that are working reasonably well. We have done some great work in helping veterans. We are doing some great work in helping some of the homeless people, and we have plans going forward to build housing to do so and funding available to do some of that. You know, we bit the bullet and did something we needed to do with the vehicle registration fee so we can do a better job of maintaining roads in the county. I'm not going to diminish that we have problems. I understand that. But let's remember that everything isn't awful. Frankly, with all those people that are driving on our roads and those overcrowded roads, as Commissioner Bernard has pointed out in the past, it means there's a lot of people working and making a living. So I think we have to focus on our problems and work on our problems, but we don't need to overreact to them either. And I, quite frankly, have every confidence in Mr. Schmidt and his team's ability to get us where we need to be on the budget. And I thank Commissioner Savis for using the expression belt tightening, because that's precisely the expression that I used when this discussion began. I had a constituent ask me a question about recycling. Because China's no longer taking our recycling. And they were concerned that those things were going to our landfills. So I had a conversation with our sustainability folks, and what is going on is that companies that are collecting the trash are working out deals with other companies that actually can process the recycling, and other countries that also have an interest in getting those recycled materials for making products. And so at this point in time, we are not taking recycling materials and just putting them in our landfills, which I thought was good news. And I'd like to end on my comments on an individual. I don't know if you all know who Steve Lights is, but I assume many of you do. Steve owns Pizza Schmitza, and he also owns a Baskin-Robbins. And he was recently awarded from Baskin-Robbins an award for his charitable giving and service to his community, and he had to go back east to I think it was Massachusetts or someplace like that, in order to receive the award. This was a national award. Just the other day, he was at our Rotary Club, where he was able to present a check to the Sheriff's Department for $1,100 that he and his customers and stores raised for the Shop with a Cop program to help kids that are less fortunate than the rest of our families might be at the Christmas season. So I really wanted to acknowledge Steve Lights, a businessman who truly has a big heart and tries to help people in his community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, the dog. Thank you. Introducing Ryder. He's a happy young fellow who can't wait to explore this great big world with his favorite person, you. Somehow he has found himself in need of a new home, and he just knows his perfect new person or family is right around the corner. He's an energetic young guy, and he's looking for a family who will be dedicated to giving him the physical and mental stimulation he needs to be a happy, healthy dog. He enjoys walks and hanging out with people, and he loves training and learning new things. His new family is going to be excited about training with him and helping him improve on some of his skills. For more information about Ryder or any other adoptable dogs, please contact Dog Services at 503-655-8628 or www.clackamas.us/dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Ken referenced I mean, when I used to drive, there was, the congestion wasn't bad, and now it's terrible. And, the way I look at it, at least they're going to work. I mean, I remember a few years back when congestion wasn't that bad, and that's because the economy was in the pits, and there wasn't, a lot of people weren't going to work. I think that our performance Clackamas, the reason it takes a little longer to reach that, the goal of sustainable budget is our performance Clackamas hasn't really been applied to the departments. And what we're doing in the next couple of years is actually demanding that those performance measures be included in departmental budgets, and we can actually see that this or that program is actually producing positive outcomes. And we're not just spending money to spend money, which we would never do, but sometimes, it might appear that way. We have to actually demonstrate that the money we're spending is providing positive output. I recently started doing this. That's getting up every morning, making my bed, because I heard somebody, some military guy say, and it wasn't you, that the best thing to do in the morning is make your bed, and that is how you deal with the rest of the day, setting goals and being positive about where we're going. We've come a long way from where we were. But the fact is that we can no longer wait for the state or the federal government to come along and help us. Used to be that when we built on a sewage treatment plant, 80, 90, 100% of it was paid by the federal government. You know what it is now? Zero. We have to do it, and that's on the backs of our ratepayers. So it is a challenge. Gasoline tax has not been raised in the United States since 1993. Now, the state of Oregon has done stuff, but the federal government has not raised gas tax since 1993. And that funding is going to be, I believe, bankrupt in a year or two. The other thing that we met today with somebody from Happy Valley, and my understanding is, and I'm not positive, but I think I heard 1,000 building permits that they have right now, 1,000. And the thing with Happy Valley is true is that their tax rate's so low that they have to grow or die. And it's too bad that that's true, but that is. Then yesterday, just as a side, somebody mentioned to me the other day, I heard somebody say that they went to a meeting and suddenly they were the treasurer. That was actually today. Somebody mentioned they went to a meeting and that day they found out he was a CPA, so they resigned and he became the treasurer. That's actually how I got in politics, is that I went to a meeting, ended up being a president of a downtown association. But I also just recently, yesterday, discovered that I'm going to be the chair of the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization. I had no idea until they told me on the phone yesterday. It said a vote for vice chair. I've been the vice chair, but no one ever told me I was going to be the chair.
See what happens when you don't show up for a meeting?
No, I was at the meeting, but they never told me that. I just never assumed that the vice chair is going to be the chair, but some organization it is, and in this case, I'm the chair of the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization as of 20. So I'll make sure that Clackamas County does, is listened to. One of the interesting things about, somebody mentioned east side, west side, is that in a major earthquake, when the bridges went down, most of our supplies will come from Eastern Oregon. And so you're right, the east side of Clackamas, of the state, will probably be supplying through some mechanism the west side. And because with all the bridges down, which would be a terrible disaster, we have gas lines, oil lines and stuff that go to reservoirs on the west side, which would fail. And so this side of the region will be the supplier of a lot of those resources to the west side. So it's important that we be prepared. The only thing I have is I'd love to coordinate more the regional disaster preparedness organization with the state. And I don't know how much there is. I've only been there a year, so maybe a year and a half, and we only have 4 meetings a year, so I haven't learned enough yet, but I guess I'm going to have to learn quicker. Anyway, with that, Paul, you had something?
Yeah, just a couple things. And one I want to clarify, and the other one, the second one's kind of important. But I just want to just clarify, the county, since I've been here, has had sustainable budgets in the past. So it wasn't until maybe 2 budgets ago that, you know, I was raising the issue that it wasn't sustainable. And I think that there was differing opinions, and turned out that it wasn't a sustainable budget, nor was the last one. But we have had sustainable budgets in the past. So like I say, if there's a trend, the trend is that it hasn't been sustainable, and we need to reverse that trend back to a sustainable budget. So in all fairness to staff, past and present, I just wanted to make that clarification. But the important thing is Veterans Day is Monday, and I just want to acknowledge and recognize all the veterans for their good work and service in protecting some of those with us, some of those are no longer with us, and the families and the sacrifices that have been made over the years on behalf of veterans and made this great country what it is today. But I just want to go on that closing note that a great thank you and a great blessing has been for the people who have served this country and preserved our freedom. So thank you.
And thank you. And there are lots of veterans events this weekend, so participate, or this weekend and Monday, so participate. I know Ken and I are going to a couple of them. So thank you very much for today, and we are adjourned.